SAP's investments in AI and innovation, as well as news from the SAP Concur conference. Those are just two of the topics we're going to cover here in episode number 15 in the season finale of season 1 of the Journey to S4HANA podcast.
Welcome to Journey to S4HANA, the podcast that covers everything related to SAP implementations. This podcast is not affiliated with SAP and covers the realistic truth behind S4HANA, Ariba, and SuccessFactors ERP implementation success. Whether you're new to the world of SAP, an existing ECC, or R3 customer, a multinational team, or a mid-sized organization, this podcast is for you. Now, here's your host, Eric Kimberly.
Hello, welcome to episode number 15 of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. This is the season finale of season 1. We've had 14 glorious episodes so far. We're down to number 15 here, so we're trying to raise the bar here. We've got an exciting show for you today. But first, just quick introductions. My name is Eric Kimberly. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their S4HANA implementations as well as non-SAP implementations and digital transformations as well. And I'm your host here today, and joining me is my co-host, Darian Fiakuski. Darian, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm kind of sad that it's the last episode of the season.
I know. What are we going to do for the next few weeks until season 2 comes out?
I know, or we might have to think of a new podcast.
Right. Right, exactly. Maybe. You don't give away too much because there might be more podcasts. Maybe there is, or maybe there is another podcast coming out after this that we can't tell you about right now. But stay tuned in our social media. You'll learn about that here very soon. But before we get too far ahead on a new podcast, we want to talk about the season finale of Journey to S4HANA. We have an exciting show. We're going to start off by talking about some of the news from the SAP Concur conference recently. We've got some social media questions we've received here that we're going to cover here today. And then I'm really excited for this. We've got Timo Elliott on the show, who, if you don't know him, he's a VP of Innovation at SAP in Paris, France. So he's going to join us from Paris and talk about all the advancements that the company's making with AI and innovation, what's on the roadmap with AI and innovation. So a lot of exciting behind the scenes, sneak peek type stuff that we're going to get to with Timo. But before we do that, let's get into some of these questions from the audience you've got for us.
Yeah, some good comments and questions this week from the audience for our last podcast here. The first one is, I think the team makes the difference in implementations. A good software with a bad team won't amount to much, while an okay software with a great team could skyrocket. What is your take on this?
100% agree. I think that's absolutely true. In fact, I'll always take, I don't bet, but I always say if I did bet, this is what I would do, which in some ways, I suppose I lose a little bit of credibility because I'm not willing to put my money on it. But if I were willing to put my money on it, I would say the company that has maybe a subpar technical solution, but a great team, that organization, that project team, that transformation is going to win every time, in my opinion, because you can overcome a lot more with good people and a good process, a good strategy than you can by simply having good technology. So while we will talk later in this episode about innovation and how important technology is, it only matters if you've got a great team and you've got the right approach and the right strategy. So I think making sure you've got that right balance of internal resources that are experts and know your business really well, combined with outside experts that know SAP and understand digital transformation and understand program management, change management, all the stuff you need to be successful. You put that together, I mean, that's a winning combination that will overcome any sort of technical deficiency that you might come across.
Yeah, super interesting. Our second question today is, I get it, big name, feels safe, yet their business is built to pull an army of consultants, aka cavalry model. They make their money throwing bodies at you. Disclaimer, my first business is now part of Accenture.
Oh, Accenture. Accenture, is that what you mean?
Not Accenture.
Or no, Accenture, that sounds like dentures or something.
Accenture?
Accenture, yeah. You're still learning this industry. That's okay.
Okay, Accenture. Okay. At least for mid-sized businesses where I play, it makes much more sense to focus on right-sized guidance. What you're trying to achieve is vastly different from what large corporations are focused on. What are your takes on this?
Yeah, I mean, similar to this person, I started my career at Pricewaterhouse, and it was a similar model as, what'd you call it? Now Acupuncture. It's the same model as Acupuncture / Accenture, or any other big system integrator consulting firm, because our model is get an army of people billing full time on a project so we can, generate 10, 20, $50 million a year on this one client. And so, if you look at, I think where the real harm is first of all, you have to say, well, for a big company, they probably need a lot of resources. The question is, do you need an army of school bus junior resources that don't know what they're doing or haven't been doing this for long? You need some of them, but do you need as many as they're going to put on the project? But I think the mid-market or the smaller enterprises are the ones that really suffer, because those are the types of companies where Accenture is so much bigger than them that in order to make it worth Accenture's time, or Deloitte or KPMG, I'm not just picking on Accenture here, it's any of the big system integrators. For it to be worth their time, they're going to have to put a lot of people on that project, and there's going to be a pressure to increase revenue for them, which is going to be a pressure to increase your costs, whether it's the right thing or the cost can be justified or not. I remember when I started at PwC, I was put on a project with no role. Like they just said, just go figure out a way to get, find work, find a role for yourself. And so when I started the first few weeks, as I was trying to get my footing under me and trying to figure out where can I add value, I was expected to be billing 60 hours a week on this client. And we were there literally 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday. We all came together, went through the front door together. We left together. We none of us left until everyone was done with whatever they had to do that day. So there was times where I might have actually added value of say 10 to 20 hours, but I was expected to bill 60. So right there, I was thinking, okay, I'm wasting 40 hours of time that I'm still expected to bill because there's not enough work here to go around. But that was the pressure that the team was under. The partner was trying to put more people on the project. And the minute you got out of training as a junior consultant, they try as fast as they can to get you 100% utilized. And that's understandable. They've got a business to run, but it kind of goes too far sometimes. And I think the mid-market especially ends up paying for it in a way that's they can be pretty painful. Even big companies that do need a cavalry of consultants, oftentimes they're not as justified because you don't know. You've got 50 people out there doing stuff, but you don't know what they're doing as a client. So to question it and say, could we get by with 40? Or, we assume that this is going to be a 2-hour or a 2-year project. What if it ends up being 3 years? Are we going to run at that same rate the entire time, or should we throttle back now and just plan for a 3-year implementation instead of 2? Those sorts of conversations are hard to have when you haven't done this before, or perhaps you haven't been through an S/4HANA implementation in recent years. So I think that is it's a real thing, and it's something to be aware of. And you've just got to manage those outside vendors rather than them managing you.
Yeah. Otherwise, it sounds like you can get pretty out of hand pretty fast.
Yeah.
And like you said, then they end up paying for it. Nobody really wants to pay for hours that they're not really using, I guess.
Yeah, and that's how clients blow their budgets. They run overtime. They end up with a lack of value because they're not holding their SI accountable, and the client ends up turning into sort of a cash cow for the big software vendor. So it's in their best interest, the system integrator's best interest, for the project to take longer, to throw more resources at it, to do a little bit more development, to increase scope, all that stuff. But it's kind of running counter to your best interest as a client. So I think that's what you just have to be aware of that. And I don't think they're bad people. It's just when you get an organization that big with that strong of a profit motive, you're gonna get steamrolled by that machine if you don't manage it right.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Well, kind of to switch gears here, those were some great comments and questions today, but we're going to go into a newsworthy topic today. It is about what SAP kind of announced at their Concur Fusion 2024. And they announced new features leveraging generative AI to enhance travel and expense management. I'm sure that we'll hear more about this later from Timo. Who's from Timo.
Timo from Accentuate, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
He's not from Accentuate. He's from SAP, but
yeah.
I'm not going to let that go. I'm going to keep bringing it up, your mispronunciation of Accenture.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, but they announced that their AI is going to enhance their travel and expense management. The key updates include AI-driven intelligent cost estimates in Concur request, automatic expense creation, and automation via expense split. I don't know exactly what that is. Do you? Expense split.
Is it a product?
It must be what they use to
expense it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but I think it's a product of some sort
that they must use for their expenses or whatever. Yeah. But and a natural language search and Concur support as well. How do you foresee the integration of generative AI impacting the accuracy and efficiency of travel and expense management for businesses?
Well, it seems like area that would be super ripe for AI because it's so transaction heavy and volume heavy and prone to human error heavy. And AI can be used to sort of pick up on anomalies and patterns and things that humans may not catch, especially when the volumes get super high. Stuff starts slipping through the cracks, and humans don't know because they're not connected to a large organization necessarily to know what's appropriate or not. Even just complying with expense policies and regulations and tax rules and things like that. AI, I mean, Concur and other related products out there can already do that to some degree, but now having AI as another layer of intelligence to ensure that, I think, could be super powerful.
So do you see any privacy challenges or challenges like that companies could face with integrating AI like this?
It could if you're not working in sort of a closed AI model. So if you're sharing private information with an open AI model, then yes, you might have some privacy issues. But if you're isolating the data internally and using AI to keep that internal data and to analyze and do whatever it is you're going to do with the data internally, then it should be okay. I think there's probably just as much risk in non-AI environments of privacy and that sort of thing. But as long as, like I said, I think the key is just to keep it out of the open AI model and just keep it within the confines of your systems that you're using now internally and operationally.
Yeah, super interesting. I think that's a good segue into what we're going to talk about here today in the interview. I think it'll be really interesting to learn more about what they talked about at the Concur conference, and hopefully get some good insights to this last episode today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna shift gears and we're gonna bring Timo Elliott on the show here in just a moment. Timo is the VP of AI and innovation at SAP. He's based in Paris, France. He's going to join us here in just a second, and then we'll dive into it with him. So stick around. We'll be right back with more of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. If you're using SAP, Oracle, or Microsoft Dynamics, or any other sort of legacy system, you might be feeling pressure to migrate to a more modern version of those legacy systems. However, there's another option out there. You can look at third-party support as a way to extend your life cycle and save money on your legacy systems while you figure out your own IT roadmap that fits your schedule. So there's a company out there called Spinnaker Support that supports, among others, SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft customers. And in general, Spinnaker customers are going to save 60% on their annual support maintenance. They're going to get extended lifecycle support. So these are support levels that help organizations take control of their IT roadmap and give them an option that extends beyond the sunset period for what SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, and other software vendors are offering. So that's one of the things that's the beauty, is not only you're saving money, but it also gives you an opportunity to work past and have a roadmap that works past the timeline that the software vendors have given. In addition, you're going to deal with or leverage expertise from consultants and support professionals that have over 20 years of experience on average. You're going to get world-class security. You're going to get proactive support. So it's actually not just fixing stuff that breaks, but also ensuring that you get more value out of your system. And Spinnaker also provides global availability. So it's really important that you check out this as an option. There's third-party support providers like Spinnaker that can give you an option that takes some of that pressure off to have to feel like you have to upgrade your system right now. So to check out this concept and to learn more, I encourage you to read a white paper that we've provided for you to the listeners of this show. It's called The Skeptic's Guide to Third-Party Maintenance and Support. So there's a link in the description field of this podcast, so be sure to check that out. You can download that. You can learn more about what third-party support is, learn more about the advantages and what some of the common frequently asked questions are, and really just address any questions you might have. So be sure to check it out. It's from Spinnaker Support. You can download that paper for free, and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Hello, welcome back to Journey to S4HANA, episode number 15, in the season finale of this first season of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. You can see all the season episodes at journeytosforhana.com. And my name is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting, here with Darian Fiakuski. Third Stage Consulting is the sponsor of this podcast and an independent technology consultant that helps clients throughout the world with their S4HANA implementations, as well as other non-SAP implementations as well. And the show is produced by Major Tom Productions. So I'm excited for our next guest. We're going to have Timo Elliott on the show, who's never been on We've been working on getting him on the show for quite some time. We're finally able to get him. And what better time to have him than on the season finale of the show? So he's going to be on to talk about AI and innovation, all the stuff that SAP is doing behind the scenes to further nurture and develop their product and advance the S4HANA platform. And so a lot of exciting stuff we're going to dive into here today. So joining us from Paris, France is Timo Elliott. Timo, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure.
It's nice to finally meet you. Great to have you on the show. And you have a really interesting role at SAP that I'm really excited to hear more about and chat with you about. Before I dive into all the questions I have for you, though, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at SAP.
I am an innovation evangelist or innovation advocate for SAP. I've been with the company for, 33 years now in total. I joined through the acquisition of a data analytics pioneer called Business Objects. So my background is data and analytics. I'm French and English, and I live in the most beautiful city in the world, Paris, France.
It is a beautiful city indeed. And I'm slightly envious that you live in Paris. Where are you originally from? Are you from France originally?
So I'm English originally, but I recovered. I'm now a proud French citizen. I've lived here in France for over 25 years with a stint in the Silicon Valley for 5 years.
Okay, great. So you said you're an innovation evangelist, I should say.
Exactly.
So what does that mean? What does your role entail at SAP? What does the day-to-day job look like for you?
Well, basically, it's working with organizations on the leading edge of innovation, gathering the lessons learned, and then trying to share that with as many people as possible so that we can all be more successful. So more concretely, I'm lucky enough, for example, as part of my role, to interview customers about their projects, trying to focus on what they learned, what they would recommend for other people. So if anybody's interested, they can go to sap.com/BTP for Better Together Customer Conversations. Or I'm a judge as part of the SAP Innovation Awards. We just announced the 2024 awards winners. That's if anybody out there is interested in SAP projects and wants some inspiration, I strongly recommend checking those out, sap.com/innovation awards. And otherwise, a big part of my job is doing presentations and keynotes at various events around the world. I'm lucky enough to have presented now to 60 different countries during my tenure at SAP.
Oh, very cool. So it's truly a global role. You're helping clients and customers all over the world that are using SAP to be more innovative and to learn from them too. It sounds like part of your job is just sort of listening and learning with how people are using the technology.
Exactly. I mean, we live in a very complicated, complex industry. There's always lots of news. So try and cut through the noise and really help explain what's important and practical and pragmatic. What can people do tomorrow to take advantage of all of these new technologies?
Great. So based on all the innovation that's happening right now in the world of SAP, not just with S4HANA, but you mentioned business objects, and you've also got SuccessFactors and other technologies that SAP owns. What are some of the innovations that you're most excited about that you and your team are working on right now?
There's, of course, a lot going on. Artificial intelligence is kind of the elephant in the room. It's the number one thing that everybody is interested in hearing more about. At SAP, we're using it at three main levels. So one is a chatbot interface called Joule. The second is embedding it as an intrinsic part of all of our applications in the cloud. And the third is making AI part of the SAP business technology platform so that people can use artificial intelligence as part of their innovation projects. So AI is clearly the biggest topic. I think really what I get excited about is sort of AI as user interface, as awesome interactions, if you like. All of our customers have invested a lot of money in implementing their core SAP systems, right? It's mission critical. It's helping running their business every day. One of the biggest opportunities, though, is getting that great functionality out to more people, making it more easily available than ever before. So I think these chatbot interfaces are really going to make a huge increase on the ROI of existing deployments.
Right, because you could kind of sit that on top of the back office systems and use that as the touch point and the communication mechanism with whatever technology or whichever version you're on.
it just makes everything easier. So, if you have SAP Ariba, you've now got sort of guided buying. It helps you choose the right product given your previous purchases and your corporate guidelines, or it could be Concur, making travel and expenses much easier. We're just implementing generative AI so that you can take a hotel bill and it automatically itemizes it. What's room, what's taxes, what's meals, or with our CX solutions, providing customers with the products they're most likely to purchase, or success factors for HR with learning recommendations. Just throughout the entire SAP portfolio, just everything gets that much easier to use.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what about SAP customers? Like the customers, how are they responding to AI, Joule, and some of these other innovations? Because it feels like in some cases, SAP and the innovation that you're leading is moving so fast, and there's so many advances that organizations and people may have trouble keeping up with that. Have you found that to be true, or how have you bridged that gap between the way things have always been and some of these future forward-looking innovations that you're working on?
Well, there's definitely been an acceleration. So AI is not new to SAP in the form of machine learning in particular. It's been almost a decade now that I think we've been really integrating machine learning into our core applications for logistics, or in the finance area, invoice matching. So these are areas where it's not necessarily the most exciting of areas, but they're absolutely offer the opportunity for big increases in efficiency and the ability of finance people, for example, spend less time doing manual work and more time on more strategic affairs. So that's been going on steadily for the last few years. The problem with most of those models is that you needed a certain quantity of data in order to do all of the training. And so it was a little bit harder and a little bit slower to implement than everybody would have liked. Now we have generative AI. Now that really is giving a turbo boost to existing machine learning options. Often you can add AI, the generative AI on top to make the solution even more effective. Just things like document extraction. So, or you're trying to find the information that's on invoices, right? Machine learning already does a pretty good job of that, but now we can do it with fewer examples to start with, or just say, look, here's a model. It already works well, even without any of your particular data. And then the new generative AI technologies like the chatbot interfaces. So we're rolling that out. The feedback has been great so far. It's already part of SAP success factors. So all of the HR side of things, help me write the job description, for example. Help me write interview questions for this job based on the profile that I'm trying to hire. And it's also part of SAP Start, and it's now part of SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud, and that's in controlled, it's early adopter care right now, but it is already available, and the feedback has been great. We're going to be talking a lot more about that next month when it comes to our big annual user conferences. So Sapphire, it's going to be in Orlando and in Barcelona, and of course there's virtual sessions for anybody who's interested in signing up.
Yeah, very interesting, exciting stuff to learn about at Sapphire for sure. And I've also seen in some of the work you've published, I've seen you refer to AI as accelerated innovation instead of artificial intelligence. You refer to it as accelerated innovation. What do you mean by this, and how is this concept enabling S/4HANA implementations?
Well, the first thing that jumps to mind is that really AI is accelerating basic science, like outside of our industry. I don't know if you saw, but Stanford University came out with a great, very detailed report on the state of AI last week. So it's like 100 and something pages, really data rich, but they gave some great examples of how AI is just advancing core science. So it literally is accelerating everything that people do as scientists. And they gave some examples of where it's things like 3D mesh creation in better ways. There's something called Alpha Dev, which is sorting routines. You would have thought that algorithmic sorting was something that was pretty much solved after 60 years of computing, but no, they managed to get some new increases in efficiency that's now embedded in like C++ and so on, predicting weather better. So just AI does mean accelerating innovation for core science. in our industry, of course, I think it's in practical and pragmatic ways, it helps people do 4 things faster. So one is it's helping organizations move to the cloud faster. Second, it helps implement strong data foundations. Third, implementing innovation projects faster. And then the last one is helping prepare for future automation opportunities so that organizations are more ready to take the next generation of opportunities on board.
Interesting. That second one sort of jumped out at me for some reason. And when you said the data piece of it, because to me it's sort of chicken and the egg. You're saying that artificial intelligence helps enable better data, and in my thought, I always think of it as you need better data to get better use of artificial intelligence. So how does AI help the actual data piece of it rather than the other way around?
Well, so I talk to a lot of organizations that are doing innovation projects, and I like asking them, what would you have done differently next time around? Like, what did you learn from this project? And they almost always give the same answer. And any guesses? What's your guess on?
I don't have a guess.
So it's cleansing and integrating data. They would have spent more time doing that before their innovation project, because it's only when they started doing it that they realized they had bad data quality problems that were stopping them from innovating faster. So artificial intelligence helps. So obviously, data is more important than ever before because garbage in, garbage out. So getting funding for good data quality is really hard. It's really hard to go to the CEO of an organization and say, I want a considerable amount of money to just like clean our plumbing.
Right.
And, so what's the ROI? Well, we're going to have clean data. So, but data quality is never a technical problem. It's always a reflection of broken business processes. So you can't fix it just with technology. It has to be at the organization level. Of course, this is your bread and butter with strategic consulting around in these innovation projects. So how does AI help? Well, it helps. It can help with the basic level of things to do with the data quality and data movement and so on. Just understanding the quality of your data today. And then it's enabling new, more modern approaches to data integration. This is where SAP DataSphere comes in. It's a business data fabric solution that we use to integrate data across the SAP portfolio and beyond, so that you have a robust platform for everything you want to do in the future.
Interesting, and that's that was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you too around DataSphere. I've heard you say, well, first of all, before I ask this question, I would not have guessed that data cleansing and migration was the one thing that customers said they wish they would have started. It makes a lot of sense, and I agree. Most cases customers start that too late, and it becomes sort of an afterthought during a lot of these implementations. I think that's a great point that you made.
I mean, I can assure you, everybody's watching this knows that they have a data quality problem in their organization. I can assure you it is worse than you think it is. And it really is worth spending the time to investigate that. Again, getting funding is hard. The good news is the ROI of fixing it is much harder. You can say, look, we'd like all of these great new AI opportunities. Okay, this is the money we're going to need to investigate this and do it properly.
Yeah, I think it's almost like now you have the attention of executives and investors and board members that are very enamored by artificial intelligence and trying to figure out how do we take advantage of AI. And data now becomes a prerequisite to that versus a standalone project to go clean up data just to clean it up, which you're right, is hard to prove the value, but now it's a little bit easier to tie it to something that's very strategic and can deliver a lot of ROI. So I think that's the good news. The other thing too is if organizations, which I agree with, if most organizations would admit that they have a data problem now in a or a sort of a evolving AI environment, imagine how much more of a problem it is as they start to use AI and machine learning and things like that. It becomes even more amplified, that challenge and that problem. So
And when it comes to SAP, this whole area is part of the SAP Business Technology Platform. So it's an integrated business-focused platform for innovation, and it's what we're using as the foundation for our next generation of solutions. So I mentioned integrated AI. AI is one of the areas that's included in the platform, and that's how we're integrating it into everything we're doing in the future. It also has application development, integration, data analytics, planning, and so on. And so that platform really is the key for us to help our customers make the transition to all of these new opportunities, whether it's, as I say, moving to the cloud or taking advantage of AI or building a stronger data foundation.
We're here with Timo Elliott asking him some questions about AI and innovation in the SAP and S4HANA space. We've got a lot more to cover, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. If you're going through an S4HANA implementation, you're looking for best practices and tips on how to make your project more successful, I encourage you to check out 2 resources that I made available to our listeners here on this podcast. First is our guide to a successful S4HANA implementation. It's a paper that I wrote based on all of our clients that have implemented S4HANA, some of the lessons we've learned, some of the best practices that we typically advise our clients to follow when going through their S4HANA implementation. So be sure to check that out. You can find that in the links below in this podcast. You can also scan the QR code right in front of you. The second thing you might want to check out is an online course that I've created. It's a course that's called the Deep Dive into SAP S4HANA Implementations. And in that 2.5-hour course, I get into all the basics of what SAP S4HANA is, what it takes to make the project more successful, how to manage change, how to handle the project planning, how to manage your system integrator, as well as some case studies from some of our clients and some of the lessons learned from some of our clients. So check out that training as well. So there's 2 things you could check out here, both in the links below. One is the guide to S4HANA implementations. The other is my S4HANA training course. So be sure to check it out. And our goal here is to help you be more successful in your transformation. So I hope you found this information useful, and we'll continue on with the show.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Hello, welcome back to the Journey to S4HANA podcast, episode number 15, the season finale. You can find all of our episodes of season 1 here by going to journeytosforhana.com. And the show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, an independent consulting firm that helps clients with S4HANA implementations as well as non-SAP implementations. And the show is produced by Major Tom Productions. So I'm here with Timo Elliott, and we're talking about AI and innovation and where SAP is headed with some of those advancements. It's evolving to be not just a set of applications, but to use your word, the platform. It's a platform that can be used to enable a lot of this innovation in addition to the applications themselves, which is interesting. So So you talk about DataSphere. You mentioned that a moment ago. I've also seen you mention in your writings and on LinkedIn posts that you mentioned that SAP DataSphere is taking over where SAP BW left off. What do you mean by that? First of all, how does DataSphere compare to BW, and how's BW evolving into DataSphere? How do they connect or not?
So SAP BW is the SAP data warehousing solution. It's been around for a long time. It really is an incredibly powerful solution. Nothing really comes close in terms of the functionality and the scale of what it provides. I mean, we have truly some massive organizations that run their organizations using the data from SAP BW. But it's not a cloud native solution. So in the future, our innovation is going into SAP DataSphere. So it's built on top of the SAP Business Technology platform. And it covers cloud data warehousing functionality in general, but really a little bit beyond, because it is this notion of a business data fabric. So you can, it's a semantic layer, if you like. It's an abstraction layer that allows you to connect to lots of different data sources, leaving it as much as possible where it already is, either inside your SAP systems or outside, and you still get an overall view of what's going on throughout your organization. So at one level, it is a long-term replacement for BW, but I emphasize that BW is not going anywhere. SAP BW for HANA, I think we promised to maintain it till at least 2040. So there's no, short-term need for anybody who's really happy with BW today to go elsewhere. But for future innovation, and as our customers move to cloud solutions like S/4HANA, they tend to implement SAP DataSphere as part of that. Actually, a couple of the Innovation Award winners jump to mind. So one is Brightspeed. They're a US telecommunications internet provider. They do a lot of broadband for rural communities, for example. And they're actually a classic example where they have SAP data, but they also had a data lake using Google and BigQuery. And they wanted to combine that. But part of the problem was that the SAP data is very multifaceted. There's a lot of context that comes with SAP data, and it's hard to move it to a data lake. You have to sort of flatten it and put in the data lake. And they were struggling to rebuild that context and combine the information effectively. So they've now moved to DataSphere for their SAP data. So they still have their data lake, but it's the data lake and DataSphere working together to give them that overview, the bidirectional movement of information. And they're moving to having DataSphere as the sort of central hub with that single view of the organization going forward.
That's very interesting. Oh, very cool. And how does DataSphere and AI, how do they tie together with Joule and the AI innovations that you're working on as well? How do those two connect?
Well, so let's start with the big picture. The power of AI is in many ways the power of data. You look at what's happening with the large language model world right now. There's a lot of competition between all of these different large language models, between ChatGPT and Gemini and Llama 3 coming out. And a lot of the experts believe that essentially what they're scrambling for now is who has the best quality data. They believe that the quality and quantity of good data is going to make the difference in creating the model. So when it comes to business use of AI and business data, I don't think that it's controversial to say that the best quality business data in the world is stored in SAP systems. We've been a market leader for business applications for a long time. There are obviously lots of other vendors out there, but SAP has the lion's share of high quality business data. So we're looking to obviously help our customers and the whole SAP ecosystem leverage the power of all of that data so that we can all be more successful. So we're working on research projects such as an SAP foundational model that is leveraging generative AI approaches, like the transformer approach of GPT, the T in GPT. But that's been used for text data or image data, but business data is typically stored in the form of columns or entity relationship models. So we're looking to figure out how can we take the power of business data and make that a core part of AI. So how we do that, obviously, we'll be leveraging the BTP functionality. So we have an AI foundation with everything you need to get the data, track the progression of your models, swap in different models. So, you can try, hey, Claude from Anthropic, does that work better than GPT or Llama 3? Because there's a lot of alchemy involved in using AI right now. To find the right combination of inputs, the grounding for your AI, and the right model. And then there's a bunch of trade-offs in terms of how much it costs, how fast it is, how accurate it is. So we're leveraging our 50 years of experience of business processes. So we can know where to find those specific decision points that AI can provide the biggest benefit, and then what combination of all of those attributes gives us the best result. And then we can just provide that to our customers. But going forward, we talked about data sphere. At the end of the day, we need a coherent approach to data across that whole spectrum, from image, but also business data, text, but also business data, to create that foundation for the future. Now, a lot of that it's moving incredibly fast. Nobody has the answers on how to do this, but we're investing a lot of time and money working with our experts and all of our partners to make sure that we're ready for the future.
That's great. That's really cool. What about BTP? You mentioned BTP a couple times now. What exactly is BTP, and how does it enable some customer migrations to the cloud?
So we said it's the platform that companies using for innovation. We're using it for innovation. We also, of course, make it available to our customers and partners so they can build their own custom workflows, processes, solutions on top of that platform. Specifically, when it comes to the cloud, it helps in two ways. One is it's got the tools for the migration itself. So as you want to, like data quality, master data management, data migration, analytics, everything you need to sort of help with the actual movement of data. But then it's also, a key concept is this notion of clean core that I'm sure every SAP customer has heard a lot of. And the background is that every organization has differentiating business processes that you want to do differently from the competition because it gives you an added advantage. In the past, this tended to be done with lots of custom code in the core on premise. So business benefits. You could have exactly the processes you wanted, but also some big downsides. Notably, it slowed down innovation because it makes upgrades much harder. You have to do a lot of testing. So typically, upgrading your SAP system was a painful long-term process. Now there's a better way of doing customizations. So you can do it with an open API-based approach using SAP BTP in the cloud. So the result is it's more future-proof, so you can take immediate advantage of new innovations, right? Such as AI, like we're constantly implementing new AI capabilities. With this kind of approach where you've got your S/4HANA in the cloud, you just get instant access to those and without having to worry about your customizations because they're part of the SAP BTP environment. And then, lower longer-term costs because you reduce the needs for testing and so on. One nice example of that is from the Innovation Awards again, Bosch Auto Parts China. They just won an Innovation Award. Now, it's a good example because they're not ready to move to the cloud right now, for various complicated reasons. So they're on SAP ECC, but they still want to innovate. And they still want to leverage the cloud opportunities. So they've turned to SAP BTP for a B2B customer service solution. So they make auto parts and things like that, and they have customer orders, and they need to integrate their dealers, and they've got returns and warranty management. So a whole bunch of activities they need to do with that group of customers. So they built all that, involves integration. You need nice interfaces. So they built all that with the SAP BTP platform. Why? Because they know they're going to move to S4HANA at some point in the future. And this way they can do it cleanly. So all of that cloud functionality will still be there once they've upgraded the core. And then with the other aspect that AI is coming into all of this with the transition is helping analyze existing code bases. I saw this was Gartner predicts. I saw a quote from them. Over the next few years, there's going to be a big surge in the use of Gen AI to help explain the legacy application code. So that code that companies have been running for the last decade that was written by some guy who left 5 years ago, you can point AI at it and it'll say, oh, this code does this, and here's how it should be replaced. Now, it's not out of the box, right? It involves consulting skills because there are different environments. A lot of what used to be custom code is now core to the application, so you don't need that custom code anymore, and so on and so on. But it is increasingly part of the toolkit that our consulting partners are using to help organizations move from their existing on-premise systems to the cloud faster than before.
Interesting. So is it fair to say then that it sounds like what you're saying is customers can take advantage of BTP even if they're not necessarily moving to S4HANA right now? I mean, it's a way to take advantage or maybe leverage some of the legacy systems they have and maybe better prepare them for a migration to S4HANA. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. So in general, and we know that moving to the cloud is a complex topic. But one thing is really clear is that all new innovation in our industry is born in the cloud. So I think it's fair to say that every organization, your core systems will be in the cloud at some point, probably reaching down into the some on-premise systems that have to stay there for compliance or privacy reasons. But the core is increasingly in the cloud. Our job, of course, is to help organizations make that transition as pragmatically as possible with the right transition plan that makes sense for that organization. So there's a trade-off between continuity, right? If it's not broken, don't fix it. At the same time, there are all of these new innovation opportunities in the cloud. And so part of our job is to make sure that our customers can take advantage of that. So we have two key programs. One is called RISE, SAP RISE. So that's for existing customers that have ECC6 and would like to move to S4HANA. It's a bundle of solutions and services and best practices to make sure that that is successfully as possible to either SAP S4HANA private or public cloud. And then we have GROW, and that's for organizations who want to go straight to public cloud S4HANA. So it is, perfect solution for a fast-growing organization that wants a modern cloud ERP.
We're here with Timo Elliott asking him some questions about AI and innovation in the SAP and S4HANA space. We've got a lot more to cover, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. If you're using SAP, Oracle, or Microsoft Dynamics, or any other sort of legacy system, you might be feeling pressure to migrate to a more modern version of those legacy systems. However, there's another option out there. You can look at third-party support as a way to extend your life cycle and save money on your legacy systems while you figure out your own IT roadmap that fits your schedule. So there's a company out there called Spinnaker Support that supports, among others, SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft customers. And in general, Spinnaker customers are going to save 60% on their annual support maintenance. They're going to get extended lifecycle support. So these are support levels that help organizations take control of their IT roadmap and give them an option that extends beyond the sunset period for what SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, and other software vendors are offering. So that's one of the things that's the beauty is not only to save the money, but it also gives you an opportunity to work past and have a roadmap that works past the timeline that the software vendors have given. In addition, you're going to deal with or leverage expertise from consultants and support professionals that have over 20 years of experience on average. You're going to get world-class security. You're going to get proactive support. So it's actually not just fixing stuff that breaks, but also ensuring that you get more value out of your system. And Spinnaker also provides global availability. So it's really important that you check out this as an option. There's third-party support providers like Spinnaker that can give you an option that takes some of that pressure off to have to feel like you have to upgrade your system right now. So to check out this concept and to learn more, I encourage you to read a white paper that we've provided for each of the listeners of this show. It's called The Skeptic's Guide to Third-Party Maintenance and Support. So there's a link in the description field of this podcast, so be sure to check that out. You can download that. You can learn more about what third-party support is, learn more about the advantages and what some of the common frequently asked questions are, and really just address any questions you might have. So be sure to check it out. It's from Spinnaker Support. You can download that paper for free, and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Hello, welcome back to the Journey to S4HANA podcast, episode number 15, the season finale. You can find all of our episodes of season 1 here by going to journeytosforhana.com. And the show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, an independent consulting firm that helps clients with S4HANA implementations as well as non-SAP implementations. And the show is produced by Major Tom Productions. So I'm here with Timo Elliott, and we're talking about AI and innovation and where SAP is headed with some of those advancements. Now, you're hitting on a topic that I think is top of mind for a lot of customers right now, which is innovation in general. I know there's this deadline, the 2027 deadline to move to S4HANA, and there's 3 different versions of HANA or S4HANA. You've got the public cloud, the private cloud, and then, of course, on-prem. And then recently, SAP has alluded to the fact that some of the innovations that SAP is investing in right now will only be made available for public cloud. So maybe just help us unpack this a little bit. All the innovation that we're talking about and discussing here today, how much of that is going to apply to all different sorts of S4HANA deployments versus only for certain types, like public cloud, for example?
Absolutely. I know this is a sensitive subject, but the reality is, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, which is, the big new opportunity, everybody would like to take advantage of that. We're embedding AI, making it available as part of SAP RISE, so it's either the private or public cloud as part of RISE. Now, why that restriction? It's really because of the speed of change. In order to implement technologies like artificial intelligence effectively, we need a certain amount of control over that environment. On-premise S4HANA, we can't see into your systems. We can't successfully navigate your customizations. We can't get the data we need to create the groundings for our AI models. And above all, like in theory, we could do that as a custom project. But keeping that maintained would be next to impossible. We've seen how fast this space is moving. In the cloud environments that we can control, whether it's private or public cloud, we can make the changes to take advantage of that in a smooth and flexible process. It's just not really feasible to do that across all of the on-premise environments, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point, which is, what I would consider the final tipping point to cloud adoption is AI, because it really is something where cloud systems are going to enable that. And one statistic I heard, maybe you can validate this, and I apologize, I don't have the exact statistic, but it was actually a guest on this podcast previously who mentioned that something like 30 or 36,000 customers of SAP have given SAP permission to use their data in their AI models and algorithms. Is that true? Or maybe could you help us on?
I'm afraid I don't have the exact number either, but it's a fascinating topic because I often get the question. So first, the way we've implemented these AI models, we're using ChatGPT and Claude and the others, making those available behind the scenes. But none of the data that is passed to those vendors is accessible by Microsoft or Amazon and the others. And none of that data is used to train the models. So your data within the SAP context is the privacy of that data is completely maintained. Obviously, this is the bread and butter, right? We understand what it is to respect privacy, mission critical. We know compliance. European country, we understand GDPR. We just had the SAP EU laws being proposed. That's something we support and something we'd already taken into account of in all of our plans for responsible AI. So when it comes back to the data, so the data tends to fall into two camps. There are areas where people, if it's not strategic data, let's say invoices in Concur, we have a set of models that check for compliance. For example, did somebody buy alcohol when your company policies say they shouldn't buy alcohol? Or did they spend too much money? Or, they put in one number into their invoice, their travel expense claim, but there's a different number on the invoice. So we have a whole series of models that work on the background as part of our solutions like Concur Verify. When it comes to that sort of data, there's just one model that works for all of our Concur customers, because people don't. That's not a strategic differentiator. Right. And there's a whole bunch of areas where that counts. There's going to be other areas where it is more strategic, and people are like, okay, no, but that data, that's something that I get value for. So there's going to be areas where we have sort of generic models where everybody can take advantage, and there's going to be other areas where it has to be a little more specific, and there's more work involved with that. So again, going through the alchemy of which areas correspond to which type is part of that process that will be going on through the next few years. But the key is to recognize that is what we're doing. We're working with our customers to figure out what the right use of data and shared data is for training models based on the context.
Yeah. Seems like it'd be a tricky balancing act, the data privacy, but wanting to train AI models better. And I'd be curious to see how that tension gets resolved over the coming years, not just for SAP, just in general for AI. I think that's a common point of debate for sure. So you talk a lot about these really cool innovations that are really moving at a breakneck speed nowadays. I mean, I feel like technological advances, especially with some of the stuff you guys are doing, it's sort of like a hockey stick curve now. We're really putting fuel on the fire now of innovation and advancements in technology, so much so that we see situations in our consulting practice where organizations have trouble keeping up. They can't move as fast and change as fast as technology is. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you ensure that more of your customers are actually taking advantage of all this great stuff you guys are building?
It's a great question. So first, I completely agree that the bottleneck, the biggest barrier is certainly not the technology. The technology is now really capable. It's finding the time and resources and skills and expertise to actually implement that is the hardest part. So part of that is knowledge. So a lot of it is education. So thank you very much for inviting me for today so we can talk about these great topics. So getting the information out there. And again, I've done recently, for example, I did a whole series of videos I hosted with our experts on getting down to business with SAP AI. So this is it's a series of sort of practical, pragmatic guides to how to turn on the AI that is already part of people's existing applications. So Concur and Ariba and so on. If folks are interested, they can go to sap.com/AI to find out more. And we're doing one on SAP Build Code later this week. So that it's the application of Joule and generative AI to let your existing IT resources create applications faster. So you can create an application using text. So you write out what you want it to do, and SAP Build Code will write the code for you. It will give you the data structures you need and test data, and then you could do it iteratively until you get the application you want. So learning, helping organizations get more out of existing IT resources with AI. So like speeding up, making it easier to implement innovation using these tools. One area I really like is SAP Build Apps. So this is targeted at the purple people in the organization. So they're halfway between the red technologists and the blue business people, like the power users. Those power users got more powerful thanks to cloud, no code, low code, and now AI. So these are solutions where business people can increasingly do more of the innovation themselves without IT and technology being a bottleneck. So Gartner calls it fusion development. You don't want business people doing anything without they need some supervision, right? Not everybody is ready to be enabled. You don't want to give chainsaws to toddlers.
Right.
But we have a great combination of tools that let business people do all of the front end and the business logic and the business workflows, while AI handles scalability, integrations with the back end, compliance, and things like that. So the best of both worlds type of solutions.
Very interesting.
And yeah.
So now you also talk about you posted recently on LinkedIn. I was stalking you a little bit. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, just getting some background info on you. And you posted this really interesting post where you highlight the skills shortage in the SAP space. Tell us more about the skills shortage and how you think this might affect innovation in the future.
So as I see, like one is getting more out of your existing resources, but I think, and as you've said, there's a mainstream maintenance deadline for SAP ECC in 2027. So a lot of organizations are working on the plans to move to the cloud over the next few years. That in turn is leading to a little bit of a crunch in resources. So it can be hard to find the qualified people in areas like S/4HANA and SAP Business Technology Platform. We are doing a number of things. One is trying to work with universities. We have SAP Next Gen as a program that works with universities and with the ecosystem to try and get young people to realize just what a great career choice SAP can be. We're not necessarily a household word among younger generation, but given how core SAP is to running a big chunk of the world, it's estimated that over 70% of the world's transactions touch an SAP system at some point or other. We do think this is a big opportunity, so we're investing in that area. Actually, I was at an event in Stockholm yesterday. One of the local consulting partners had a great program that they called it STEP, for SAP Technology Education Program. And it was placing university students with customers and then coaching them throughout the project. So it was like half training, half consulting. And it just seemed that was more of that we need in order to get more people available to implement these great new technologies.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to have that outreach at the university level to educate kids and get them excited about potentially working in the SAP ecosystem. So when you look at all the innovation that you guys are working on now and which you have on the horizon for the future, what are some other innovations that you might have in development that isn't super secret or super confidential that you could tell us about? What are you most excited about?
So let me go big picture, because that's kind of part of my role. So we have some existing technologies that work great today. So notably Signavio, this SAP Signavio is a business process management solution, and it's a fantastic business-oriented complement to technology strategy. So this really looks at your organization, not from a technology process point of view, but just from a process point of view in terms of like who is supposed to do what. What does the workflow look like? And it's a great platform to allow you to collaborate about the future vision of your organization in the future. A lot of the organizations I'm talking to are interested in changing their business models. A lot of organizations that make things would like to add digital services. That requires a whole bunch of changes to the customer interactions. They might need to bill in new ways. The logistics are different. So instead of diving straight into the technology and then trying to do everything through the technology change, which, as I'm sure you know, can lead to problems, do it more at the business process level, separate from the technology. So that's what the suite of solutions does. I say it's a great thing to check out if people haven't already done so. But now we're integrating it with the rest of the technology platform. So we have process mining. So you can actually point Signavio at your existing systems and it will go through and figure out where's the lowest hanging fruit. Where are the parts of your business processes where you're missing an opportunity to automate? Or you can start doing comparisons between one region and another region. It's like, why is this region doing it differently? Which one should we do more integrated way? So we literally give you a best run score, like a little scorecard. We fired your systems and we give you a bunch of scorecards, and here's where you could do some improvements. I was actually talking to an organization called Blue Diamond Growers. They're an almond growing cooperative out of California.
Yes, I use their product regularly.
All right, there you go. So they were using Signavio, and I have a quote somewhere that, again, they was one of the Innovation Award entries, so you can find it yourself. But it's basically along, I was a little bit skeptical, but I pointed at our system, and wow, it gave me, all of these ready to look at opportunities for things that I could do better. So the first part is identifying the problems, but now increasingly we have the SAP S/4HANA or SAP BTP best practices. So we can say, look, you have this process is very manual and slow, and often you have a lot of variations. Would you like to automate that with this best practice? And in the cloud world, we can start increasingly implementing that for you, right? So we're getting closer to the notion of like one-click innovation. And the bigger picture, over time, this is called SAP. Signavio calls it plug and gain, which is just, I don't know, I hate that term, but it's basically automated automation powered by AI. Right? You think about it, we've got these incredible amount of information about how our systems are working. We've got great best practices. We can identify the delta, and we have all of the knowledge we need to fix the delta. So increasingly, we should use the power of technology to turn technological innovation into a business process itself. So the analogy I've been using is today innovation is like a staircase. It's a very manual, physical process. Like each step, I have to go, okay, now the next step, pause, wait. In the future, it should look a lot more like an escalator, where I simply step on and I'm using the power of the system itself to continually take me to the next level, and I can just enjoy that innovation ride.
Right.
So that's obviously a vision, but there's a lot of reality there, especially now with AI. We can start doing a lot more of the innovation more automatically than ever in the past.
That's very cool. Yeah, it's exciting. You think about all the different things that we're just starting to see now and stuff that we haven't even thought of yet, and different ways to use AI and some of the other innovations you guys are working on. So really appreciate having you here today, Timo. This is a great conversation. It's exciting to sort of get inside the head of someone who's really pushing forward a lot of this innovation that you guys are working on. So thank you for being here today.
It's been a great pleasure.
All right. Thanks again, Timo. That was a great conversation. Appreciate having you here today, and a lot of good stuff you covered here today, and a lot of really interesting stuff that we're going to debrief on here in just a moment. We're going to dive into a couple threads that we talked about with Timo. First, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of the Journey to S/4HANA podcast. I recently published my first book. It's called The Final Countdown: Strategies to Reach the Third Stage of Digital Transformation. And I wrote this book because I really wanted to find a concise way to share some of my knowledge around digital strategy and how to get started on a digital transformation journey. So in this book, I cover 3 different sections. I cover the people, process, and technology aspects of transformation, with the idea that it's meant to be a starting point, a launching pad for organizations and team members that are going through digital transformations. So I encourage you to buy this book. You can get it electronically, you can get it paperback, or you can get it in hard copy, as I'm holding here in front of you. You can get it by going to thefinalcountdown.com. You can also search for it on Amazon if you shop at Amazon. Otherwise, just go to thefinalcountdown.com. Love to hear your feedback on this book as well. So I hope you check it out and hope you enjoy.
If you are involved in any sort of digital transformation or business change initiative, you will want to download the Digital Transformation Report. With its comprehensive overview of business and technology trends and best practices, this report is a must-have guide for any transformation project or executive team. Download this free report by visiting Third Stage Consulting at thirdstage-consulting.com. You can also visit our website to learn more about us or download independent reports, videos, and other best practices. Again, visit thirdstage-consulting.com today to learn how you can take your transformation to the third stage of success.
Hello, welcome back to Journey to S4HANA podcast, episode number 15, the season finale. And I'm kind of sad. We just had our last guest of the season. It's going to be a few weeks, maybe in months before we come out with season 2. But since it's our last episode, what were some of your thoughts and takeaways, Darian?
Okay, I think that was a great conversation to end the first season on. I think we could learn so much from him. He definitely did not shy away, or you guys did not shy away from discussing any challenges involved with implementing AI within SAP systems. I think that was very well acknowledged as like a hurdle that is definitely going to have to be addressed. But I also think the conversation included a lot of real world examples for how AI can be used in the SAP environment, which was super cool. And hopefully people could learn from that if they are implementing SAP or take away some things from that conversation.
Yeah. What's cool about his job, by the way, just to build on that, what's really cool about his job is that he's going around the world. You know, he's of course speaking and promoting SAP and being an evangelist of SAP and S4HANA and the advancements that they're making. But he's also talking to a lot of customers and seeing how they're actually using it, which I think is fascinating. So he's got sort of that futuristic view of things, but he's also grounded in sort of what's actually happening right now. And he's at the forefront of how customers are just starting to use AI. And I think we're just starting to scratch the surface, and he's really leading the charge there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something you have a really unique perspective when you hear from him. I mean, he has a perspective of being in the know about the things, but then also, like you said, can be really realistic and on the ground for what companies are going to experience. Yeah. That perspective is really cool. Yeah. A couple of follow-up questions, I guess, to dive into the interview a little bit more. What strategies should businesses adopt to balance the need for customizations with a clean core approach?
Yeah, that's the age-old question that I don't know will ever get resolved, or at least not anytime soon. Hopefully it does get resolved someday, because there's always pressure on organizations to customize because it's different than the way things have always been, or there's certain certain capabilities or competitive advantages that they've built in their legacy systems, and they don't want to give it up just because S4HANA or any other ERP system doesn't handle it. And now with the move towards public cloud, where you've got multi-tenant SaaS solutions that are even less flexible and there's less ability to customize than you might have had with the old on-premise system, now that pressure becomes even greater. So I think a lot of what you've got to do is figure out, you have to be real careful about, and you have to be real careful about justifying, making sure that it makes sense to customize when you do. And you have to question and challenge every time you do customize, because every time you try to do that, it adds complexity and risk and cost to the project. And the other thing too is you don't want to just look at clean core or not. Is it a clean core or a customization? There's also third-party bolt-ons. I mean, SAP has their own third-party bolt-ons with Concur, as we talked about earlier, SuccessFactors, Ariba, Business Objects. They've got all these different systems that they've acquired and developed over the years that are essentially third-party systems that can bolt on and sort of augment the core, the clean core, without you having to customize. If SAP doesn't have the right product that fits any certain need, you can always go look at a best-of-breed solution, a non-SAP product, and that's okay. That's not the end of the world, even though, again, SAP is going to tell you don't do it, stick with our ecosystem of products. But you've got to look at your options, because there are a lot of good options out there that can integrate well with SAP, even though they're not sold by SAP. So those are some of the ways you got to think about it. But you also, I think at the end of the day, you just have to look at what's our strategy, what are our priorities, and let's not water down that strategy or priorities just because we want to have a clean core. Let's look at what our other options are and look at the cost benefit and the risk of that.
Yeah, definitely a good advice for a very hard question to answer that could be different for everybody. But also, what are some of the key lessons that companies have struggled with AI implementation in SAP environments so far? I know that you talked about that a little bit, but you could expand on that.
Yeah. So he's, like I said, or we were saying a moment ago, he's on the forefront of seeing exact situations where customers are maybe a little bit more advanced or a little bit more leading the charge with AI. He's certainly way ahead of everyone because he's behind the scenes developing the stuff with his team and learning it and seeing it before anyone else does. But for the most part, SAP customers we work with are a lot further behind, not because they're immature, or not because they're not sophisticated, or not because they don't want to be further ahead. It's just they're still trying to figure out just how do I get off of ECC and R3 or my legacy system? How do I move to S4HANA? And AI is sort of like moving up the Maslow hierarchy of needs. First you've just got to get the basic financials and inventory management, the basic capabilities in place, get your data clean, all that stuff. And then you can work your way up to other things like AI. When organizations can't even get the base in place, they're not even thinking about AI. They're just trying to figure out how to survive the initial transition. And then they sort of self-actualize and get to that AI adoption piece of it. So I think the key is not to get too far ahead of yourself and not worry too much about AI right now if you're not ready. If you're still just trying to get your accounting and chart of accounts in place, do that first. And then, in parallel, you could be thinking about how you might deploy in the future, but don't let it bog down your initial transition, because that's more important for now, is to get the transition done, the base transition. Then you can start adding AI and introducing it to the operations in the organization over time. So the good news is SAP, as we heard, is still doing a lot of work. There's a lot of advancements still yet to happen. So they're still trying to figure out how AI is going to look in the future. So it gives you some time to figure out your core fundamentals before you worry too much about AI. And of course, you might find that there's some selective areas where we might want to start using AI right away. That's okay. But don't worry about biting off all of AI and doing every possible AI use case right now if you haven't figured out your basic stuff first.
Yeah, definitely not the first thing on the agenda if you still have a bunch of other things to figure out, become over time.
Yeah, you've got to prioritize and focus.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what a great episode overall. What a great way to end the season.
Yeah, great season. It was fun. I hope the audience, I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope you learned some stuff as much as we did. I mean, every guest that was on this season was great. I loved every guest we had. And some of them will be back next season. We'll have a lot of new guests next season. So stick around and stay tuned for season 2 of Journey to S4HANA. And if in the meantime, if you haven't seen all 15 episodes, you could go back and watch them all. They're all available on our website at journeytosforhana.com. You can also learn more via our guide to S4HANA implementations. That's a guide that Third Stage provides for free to the audience here. So you can go to the links below and find that guide below. So thanks for being here this season. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. In the meantime, you can also check out our weekly Transformation Ground Control podcast that Darian and I host. It's a tech agnostic podcast, but it covers all kinds of stuff related to strategy, people, process, technology as it relates to ERP and digital transformations. So that'll hold you over, hopefully a little less sad, knowing that you have that to turn to while you wait for season 2 of Journey to S4HANA. So hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next season and see you soon elsewhere, hopefully, on Journey to S4HANA and elsewhere. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.